Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing amazingly well, as always, from whichever part of the world you are watching. I can't believe we're already in nearly, towards the end of November. Before we know it, Christmas will be here. Then we will be entering 2025. It's been a very exciting year, 2024, and I've loved to see how the wellness industry is growing and specifically wellness in hospitality. And that brings me to the subject of today's session. Today, I wanted to answer the question many of my clients ask me, and that is, so what does it cost me to build a wellness facility in my hotel? So, what percentage of funds can I realistically expect to spend on the cost of build of my wellness facilities? Now, just to clarify who I am speaking to, so you know, my clients, you are the owner of a boutique property. What is a boutique property? Anywhere between 15, 20 to up to 60 keys. And you strongly believe in wellness. And you are not the traditional hotelier. You probably don't even come from a hotelier background, but you have a property or you've acquired land and you want to build this property that actually gives back to the community, that gives back to the environment, that regenerates the entire area. And you allow your guests to live a very unique and memorable experience. This is who you are. You are not looking for a quick win over here. You're looking to craft your legacy going forward. So you know that you want to do wellness and you want wellness to be an important part of your particular brand's DNA. So you could have one property or you could have multiple properties, and you are the people who will be running your property. So you will not be getting a third party operator or a hotel chain to manage it. So this asset is owned and run by you. So this is who I'm speaking to. It doesn't mean that other people won't get benefit from today's session, but just to know that who I am speaking to and who will find this particular episode very, very interesting. I would also like to say that my wellness leaders who I'm taking through the Wellness Asset Academy, so you are wellness directors or spa directors, regional spa directors, you believe in the power and the value of wellness, and you're looking to upskill yourself. You're looking to get more knowledge in order to understand the wellness business and make wellness represent more than the typical 8 up to 8% of total hotel revenue. You want to take it up to 30, 40%. So today's session will be very interesting for you in terms of, okay, what does it cost genuinely to an owner? What is the cost to an owner to build that wellness facility? So now going back to the owners of boutique hotel properties, we're talking about anywhere to 20 to 60 keys, and you want to build a comprehensive wellness facility. That means you want the hydrotherapy area, you want a gym, you want the relaxation areas, you want the swimming pool, you want an area for all the mind body activities. So that is what I call a comprehensive wellness facility. And before I dive any deeper, you do not need a comprehensive wellness facility in order to do wellness successfully in your hotel. I would like to highlight that. But generally, I find those of you who want to leave that legacy and you are in a location that allows you, that is actually is open to have that full blown wellness facility, then this is relevant to you. What's the rule of thumb I normally tell my clients? Your wellness facility should not cost you more than 20 to 25% of the total cost of the build of the entire property. Now you're thinking, wow, 20 to 25%, that is a large amount. It is a large amount. And realistically speaking, when you're talking about a full blown wellness area, it is a very high capital expenditure. It costs a lot to build these wellness facilities, and it's equally costly to maintain them. And that is just the nature of the beast. We can't ignore those costs. So I'll give you an example. Now, I use these figures purely as guardrails because sometimes I have seen we can get so carried away with our spa and wellness facilities that they sometimes end up becoming a liability, or they sometimes don't make commercial sense. They end up being a business that is not commercially sustainable. So if let's say your property costs to build the entire property $50 million, for example. And that means if you have put aside $50 million for the build of the entire facility, the recommended cap that I would give for this particular property would be 20%. That would be $10 million. So now $10 million sounds a lot, but that is what that is realistically going to cost you. And then from that $10 million, now we're going to look at, okay, so when are we going to get the return on investment? In how many years can I expect that? Now, one thing I have found fascinating is that how little knowledge there is out there on a realistic return on investment in terms of time. And let's do a quick calculation of how this could work out. It's quick and dirty, but these are just big picture figures that I'm throwing at you. So let's say your property costs 50 million, the whole cost of build to build, let's say 30 keys and your 7 treatment room spa, full with the hydrotherapy area, fully equipped gym. Then you have a swimming pool, all the mind body activities you want. The cost of build is 10 million of the entire wellness related facility. Now, let's say in terms of direct revenue, directly from the wellness area, the revenue generate from the sales of wellness services and treatments, let's say it's $1 million a year in terms of revenue. And this particular property has an EBITDA. So this wellness area has an EBITDA. So, or a GOP, if you want to make it easier that they're not the same thing, of 20%. That means you take home 200K each year in terms of your EBITDA. If you take that calculation, 10 million divided by 200K, your return on investment for the wellness related facility will be 50 years. 10 million divided by 200K. Now that is what we're talking about in terms of return on investment. And you must be wondering, Jesus Christ, I hope you're not recommending anyone to spend 10 million or 20% of the total cost of build on the wellness facility area. Now, here's the real thing. That is what it actually costs to, equip the whole thing. We're talking about a very high capital expenditure area. Now, the maximum cap I would recommend is that 20% in this case. And that takes 50 years to actually generate your return on investment. And in a recent study I did with with a good 20, or I think it was around 18 luxury hotel GMs of luxury hotels, and some of them owners. And we looked at the cost of build of the wellness facilities. And 97% of them told me that they hadn't fully recouped the return on investment of the build of the entire wellness related facility. And now, 15 to 20 years down the line, they have to even refurbish it. So that pushes the return on investment even further. Now you might be thinking, how then is wellness profitable? How then does wellness make business sense? And now I'm speaking to my wellness leaders. It's important to understand what it costs to build a wellness facility. And obviously, there are locations and there are locations. But this is what you're talking about, a full blown wellness facility. That is what is going to cost you. And that is kind of the return on investment. 50 years is a bit of an exaggerated, but sometimes the 30 to 50 years is not that exaggerated. That is what I'm seeing with all my luxury hoteliers. But they continue to do wellness. Why? In a video a very quick video I had taken out a couple of days ago, I talked about how retail's loss, I talked about the retail industry's loss leader strategy. Terrible name, by the way, but I will not get precious about the name and I'll just stick to the concept. We're talking about why the retail industry will go into locations that perhaps on the grand scale of things barely allows them to cover their costs. And the reason they do that is for positioning. The reason they do that is to put themselves in front of the right clients. If you want to tap into the wellness conscious traveler, the traveler that stays longer, spends more, and is also willing to come off peak, then this is how you position your property. Even if just on the wellness related area, you are barely breaking even. Now comes the very important thing where most of us trip. We spend so much in a wellness related facility. We also create a wellness P&L that is not at all realistic. Because I normally tell my clients you're going to barely break even if you're looking at a long-term kind of property, because I'm also taking into account the capital expenditure, the high upkeep costs, and the potential refurbishment that will be needed of these different wellness facilities. So if we look at that complexity of the wellness P&L and we see that really we're barely going to break even, we're actually even not even going to get our return on investment, maybe even in 30 years, for example. The thing is, when hoteliers actually implement this and the reality of their investment actually kicks in, that is when they start getting very, very nervous and they get very reactive in their approach and they think that wellness doesn't work. Now, wellness from the beginning was never going to give you a return on investment in 2 or 3 or 4 years. If you are spending that 20% of total cost of build in your entire wellness related facility, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. And that is a very different return on investment. Now, once you have made it, then what you can't do is neglect that area. And this is what I see luxury hoteliers do in certain circumstances. They either sublet part of their wellness related facility to a third party operator because they see they're barely making, ends meet, they're barely breaking even. And what they end up doing is they lose control over the entirety of their guests' wellness experience purely because they've become reactive. And guess what? They learn that the third party operator can't make it a huge success either. When I'll define success, they're not kind of bringing the dollars in as they thought. They're not printing dollars from that particular business. And they end up leaving, and then you have a new operator. And then this kind of, revolving door of operators coming and going. And then the hotelier says, oh, I don't know how to do wellness. It's not that you don't know how to do wellness. It's that this is a very different business model. Now, going back to the loss leader strategy that the retail industry does, for example, if they're in this iconic location in London, or let's say here in the city of Madrid, in the best street, paying exorbitant rents, they're not going to put their worst items in there. They're not going to put their worst people to manage. They're going to find the best people. They're going to find the best manager. They're going to put their best pieces of clothing out there. They're going to make that showcase that showroom look absolutely amazing. Because precisely that is what it is. It's about positioning them in front of the ideal customer. They don't go subcontracting or subletting that particular location, or they don't go, taking normal assistant and making them the manager of the facilities. They don't go putting their worst kind of clothes or the leftovers from other locations. They don't go putting them in this particular location. But as hoteliers, we end up doing that. We don't get the return on investment right. So we are not realistic on what that return on investment looks like. We think clearly we can do it better because others didn't get it right. Then when the reality hits and you see that you're barely breaking even, you're actually living that reality. That is when you get reactive. Then, you actually resort to age old business solutions of cost cutting or giving the least to this area because it clearly is not giving you the business or the money you need. And I think that is incredibly short sighted. So, this is a realistic return on investment. I'm talking to boutique hotel owners. We're talking about that. So that's why I always cap, because it can get so easy to spend so much in your spa and wellness facility area and then only be met with disappointment. Now, having said that the return on investment is actually incredibly long, we're talking about 30 to 50 years, and I gave this example of 50 years a bit exaggerated. That doesn't mean we don't do wellness. Because the mere fact of adding this 20% or allocating this 20% of cost of build in this particular area will allow you to charge at least 4 or 5 times the ADR in your rooms and also the average check in your fine dining restaurant. So you are using this loss leader strategy. Terrible name. We'd have to find another name for it. In order to put yourself in front of the right client so that they pay more and stay longer and are more satisfied. And what you can't do is leave the wellness facility half dead. You have to get the best wellness leader out there. You have to get the best treatments. You have to get the best brands. You have to be constantly innovating, just like the retail industry does with its showrooms in key strategic areas in any city, even if they're generating losses. They don't put their worst managers. They don't put their worst teams. They don't put the lowest selling hand-me-downs into those shops. They put the best of the best there. And that is what you need to do also with your wellness facilities. Put the best of the best. But it's so incredibly important to know when you are getting yourself into this, what exactly you're getting yourself into. And this is what I call the nature of the beast. Wellness adds tangible and intangible value. And it's one of the fewest areas in your entire hotel that will actually increase the valuation of your hotel because precisely of that intangible value. And why is this important for our wellness leaders? We sometimes become incredibly dismissive. We say, oh, wellness is very profitable. Wellness is such a fantastic business. Wellness gives so much money. I'm not denying any of that. Wellness does. But you also have to know the reality that when it comes to the luxury segment, and we are talking about full blown wellness facilities, the return on investment is 20 to 30 years. And on average, I see 30 years going upwards. So it's important to be sympathetic about what our business actually costs to build. And once we know what that costs, we're then able to make sure that the wellness facility adds the value it needs to the entire ecosystem. We can't just look at our individual profit and loss. And we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Our business is costly to build. It's capital intensive and it's labor intensive. And that's not going to change. And I'd also like to reiterate, you don't need all the bells and whistles to do wellness successfully. But it also will mean that you can't charge the ADR and have the average check per guest in your restaurant. You can't compare. So everything, you just have to put it on the balance and see what is the big picture and what exactly do I want to achieve with my boutique property. And also for you boutique hotel owners, the guardrails. It's so important to know that you can't go beyond that 25%. And even if you do that 20%, know what you're getting yourself into. And when you do, and you know that realistic return on investment, when you do open doors, when you are taking your show to town, make sure that you have the best people in that facility. Make sure that that is the best area in your entire hotel, that you are promoting it the maximum, that you're getting your best partners to be working on that, because that is your showroom. That is what's going to put you in front of the right clients who will buy more and pay more. And this is how wellness adds value in these particular properties. And when we're talking about all the bells and whistles in a boutique property from 30 to 60 hotel rooms, I'm not talking about, the more traditional format or bigger hotels. I'm talking purely about boutique hotel owners up to 60 hotel rooms who strongly believe in wellness, and you're creating a legacy. You want to create something for future generations, but you're also smart. You want your businesses to be commercially sustainable. You don't want them to be a burden on future generations. You don't want to be that steward of irresponsible hospitality or wellness. You want to be that steward of responsible hospitality. And in order to be responsible, you need to know what things cost. You need to put the guardrails on. And then when you open, the strategy also has to be coherent. So, on that little lecture I gave you, I hope that made sense. And I wish you all a fantastic day ahead. Take care now.